Hello, this is Talon with Old Got Stuff on Busy Corner Lane, and I'm going to show you a phone stand that I made for a friend of mine and how I made it. Okay, so first of all, I've got my phone set flat. That's intentional, okay? And so the other day, I had to take a picture of my driver's license for something, and I like my pictures of cards like my driver's license or whatever to look good. So this is something I got sent in the mail. Yeah, and so you can tell this is actually a good picture on my phone. Okay, and by the way, I'm putting my tablet on my old phone stand to make this video. So these stands can be used for a lot of things, not just a phone, right? So I'm going to make an adjustment here, and I'm going to push this down some. Now, normally, you might be using your phone for, like, you know, internet or checking weather or whatever, right? So in this particular way, that's great for my phone, okay? Or I can set it sideways, okay? Not a problem. Now, if I want to be able to, say, take a picture of something across the room or far away, then I don't want to hold the phone. I can actually take and make my phone more vertical. So when I do that, click on my app there. So when I do that, okay, I can get a better picture without having to hold the phone, okay? If I want to do the phone horizontally like landscape mode, I can just change which hole this dowel is in, okay? So if I put my phone in horizontally, I've got my dowel sitting there. Oh, got the dowel in anyway. And my phone is vertical and horizontal. Then I can take a picture from far away, maybe like a selfie or something like that with some friends, and we're good to go. All right, so I figured my friend might like to have a phone stand like this. So I'm going to show you what I did to make it. All my cuts are going to be at a 60-degree angle. So that's what I got my miter saw set for. And I like to check this digitally because I don't like the way the saw actually verifies that it's at the correct angle. Okay, I have a stop block over here on the right side of the saw. All my cuts are going to be at 6 inches at 60 degrees. Okay, I'm turning off all the sound from the machinery because it is very loud. Okay, so I have the first piece cut, and I'm about to take the piece I just cut. I'm going to flip it over and cut the other edge. So the 90-degree edge is going to be beveled at 60 degrees, and this particular one is going to be a trapezoid. So I'm going to make 2 phone stands, and the phone stands are going to have 2 main pieces. They're going to have the base, and they're going to have the face part, the angled part. Now, the bases will be trapezoids, all at 60-degree angle on the sides, and the face part that the phone leans against is going to be a parallelogram, but still 60 degrees. Now, the edges are a little bit rough, but that's okay because I'm going to do everything on a sander by the time the project is over. Okay, so this particular piece is going to be a parallelogram, so this is going to be a face part. I'm going to cut the other one just like this. So I'm going to bypass the next cuts. Okay, so I've got all the cuts made, and I got a little bit of roughness on the edges. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this on my belt sander, and I'm just going to smooth the edges out some. Now, I'm not going to run the belt sander. What I'm going to do is just set the edges flush up against the sanding paper on the belt, and just give it a little bit of rubbing. At the end of the project, I am going to run the belt sander and actually sand the surfaces more smooth. But for the purpose of things fitting together when it's being glued, I do want to smooth out the area that's going to be actually glued. That's why I'm going to do this. I'm just going to hold it carefully at the 60-degree angle and give a little bit of rubbing action, and that's going to smooth it out. Okay, I have these little knob-like things from my hole saw from an earlier project, so I didn't cut any for this. But basically, you use a hole saw like a doorknob saw. This one's a much narrower diameter. And when you cut that hole in the wood, this is what's left over. So I use these pieces. Okay, I'll mark my drill bit so I know how far down I'm going to go, because I did not feel like setting the drill bit stop. That's more hassle than it's worth, at least on this project. So I just marked my drill bit with the marker, and then I'm just going to visually watch that bit, and when it goes down to that line, that's when I'm going to stop. Okay, finish it up on my last one. And we're good. And then what we'll do is we'll take some 3/8" dowels and we'll put these in here, like this. And they're not the same length, but I'm going to trim them down later. That'll be one of the end parts I do, is to trim it. The other one is actually up 2 inches. I'm only going to go up 1.5 inches. It didn't have to be a whole 2 inches. Okay, so what happens is, at this point, I'm going to mark where my holes are going to go. Now, on my old folding stand, those holes at the bottom that were holding the phone were 2 inches up. But that's a little much, so I decided to shorten that by 1/2 inch. So I'm only going 1.5 inches up, and my holes are going to be symmetrical to the center and 1 3/4 inches apart. For these phones that I've got and the people that I'm going to give these to, they have, this is going to be good. If I use one of my older phones that's much smaller, like the HTC Aria, that's almost a little bit bigger than a credit card size, then these holes would be too far apart for it. So I'm just going to take a little punch and kind of define my hole a little bit better for my drill bit. Now this hole here in my old stand, I'm leaving out, so I'm not going to be dealing with that. Now I'm going to put my vertical holes, because that's what lets me be able to tilt my phone and be able to held in place on the tilt. So I'm going to go for the length of my phone and the size of the stand, basically 1 and 2 inches from the top. And that's going to be good for these larger size phones. For my smaller phones, they would be too far up, but for my larger phones, these are fine. Okay, so now I'm going to be doing the drilling part, and my holes need to be 3/8 of an inch. And I find it a good idea to do a practice hole just to make sure everything's going to be just right. So I have this piece that I cut off of the project wood, just because this knot's not actually in a very good place. Otherwise, I don't mind the knot. So I'm going to drill the hole. And one of the things I like about having the support wood being a different color is I can easily tell that I made it all the way through the wood if the saw does change its color. Okay, so the practice hole being done, I'm making sure that the dowel's gonna fit in good, and it does. So that's what I want with that. That's good part there. So now I'm going to take and make all 8 holes, okay, to 4 on this piece and 4 in the matching piece, and I'm gonna pause while that's doing it, because I don't think you need to see me just drill holes over and over. Okay, so here I've got one of the face pieces I just drilled, and it's sitting on my old phone stand so that the part I'm putting the glue on is gonna be staying level. So I'm just using Gorilla Glue. That's been doing a good job for me. And I'm going to use the most ultimate and redneck technological achievements and advances. And I'm going to use duct tape to hold my glue pieces together. And that's only because I don't have a clamp that's going to adequately give proper support to a 60-degree angle. Otherwise, I would use a clamp and not duct tape. But duct tape works really good, and it's going to come off good at the end. So I don't have a problem with that. I'm going to leave it sitting on there for an hour. I'm going to do the other one. And then I'll be able to come back to it and be ready to do the next part. Now, that little bit of overflow in the back, that's not going to matter. And any overflow that might happen on the front or the sides, I'm going to sand off on the belt sander at the end. So we'll get the next one done, and then I'll come back. Okay, so now it's time to take duct tape off. This has been sitting for about an hour like this. Hold the angle nice and flush. So that's important. So I think that looks like it's going to do a good job. And then I'll take the knob pieces that I showed earlier with some dowels that I cut. Now I'm just using 3/8 inch dowels because I use a 3/8 inch hole. And I can adjust those to get those to the depth that I want them, and then I'll glue them later on if the person I'm going to send it to wants me to glue them, and I'll ask him first. And then we'll check on these. If these are a little tight, then what I'll do is I'll put the dowel in my drill, and then I'll run that with a piece of sandpaper and just let it gradually, shave off the sides so that it'll go a little bit smoother if they're a little tight. And these are a little tight. Okay, we're gonna get the dowels on this one. Now, I'm not doing anything to add more structural support for these, and I've not found it necessary to do so, even though I've done it in the past. But if I'm going to, then I will put dowels in there, in the back, in the bottom part, and glue them in so that they hold into the top part. But this one that I've had for more than a year that I've been using, it hasn't come apart with anything. So if my friend wants me to dowel that part, I will. Otherwise, I'm not going to worry about it. If it ever comes apart on it, you can send me the parts back. I'll fix it.